Dave Decay Show. I'm Dave Decay. It's October. It's horror month, all month long, and we are continuing with the classics, Universal horror films.
And I'm Spookarella.
And I am Professor So-and-so.
Alright, so now we got the first, I guess, sequel, is what you want to call it, a sequel, to The Wolfman, which actually is one of my favorite Universal films. One of my favorite Universal monsters, actually. And this one is kind of weird, kind of odd, because it's not just the Wolfman, it's the Wolfman, I was going to say versus Frankenstein, but I think it's Wolfman and Frankenstein.
Actually, it's Frankenstein meets the Wolfman.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Meaning that this is the first time they have ever met up with each other because the two have been apart.
Now, I found it really interesting, as I have through this whole series we've been doing now, on how they actually find ways to bring these guys back from the dead. Especially Frankenstein. Frankenstein's always been interesting how they're bringing him back through every movie. Now, the Wolfman would have been a really interesting prospect of bringing him back because he got beat to death in the last movie, and they buried him, and he was in a coffin. So it's like, how are they going to bring this guy back from the dead?
Apparently, the secret is just like open his coffin and let the moon hit him and move all the plants out of the way, and he just comes alive.
Now, is that the way science works, Professor?
Yes, it was very scientific that way. But also they had the contributing factor of Wolfbane that was buried alongside of the Wolfman. As actually, he was covered in it.
Now, let me say first off right away here, I thought this was an excellent Wolfman movie. I thought it was an excellent sequel to The Wolfman, and Lon Chaney Jr., who has already played the Mummy by this point, and has already played Frankenstein by this point, has returned to his original monster, the Wolfman, and I thought it was an excellent sequel to The Wolfman.
I did too. I thought it was great.
However, there's a however so-and-so.
However what?
However, good, no, I'm glad you asked.
So?
What?
So what?
So?
So go on.
Oh, however, I don't think that it was necessary to put Frankenstein in this movie. And actually, Frankenstein wasn't even in this movie, it was his daughter. So now you had Frankenstein, Frankenstein's other son, and now, apparently, this is the granddaughter of the other son of Frankenstein, I guess.
No, it's the granddaughter of original Frankenstein. It's the daughter of the other son of Frankenstein.
I think that's what I said.
Yep.
I didn't mind that Frankenstein was in this movie. I enjoyed the fact that Frankenstein was in this movie. Because, yeah, I guess they could have left him out, but they put him in there as a reason for the Wolfman to want to find out how to get rid of himself.
Yeah, and that was a really bold decision, I think, from this film. Because it was really an interesting plot device. The whole entire film was about a guy who wanted to kill himself.
Basically, he was looking for Dr. Frankenstein, even though Dr. Frankenstein no longer exists. He looked toward a doctor to be his Dr. Kevorkian.
That's a good comparison right there. Or Dr. Giggles.
Dr. Kevorkenstein.
Exactly, Dr. Kevorkenstein.
Much like Professor So-and-so would do.
Now, like I was saying, okay, I understand that the Wolfman wanted to kill himself. But why couldn't he have just found another scientist who would have helped him do it? Rather than having it to be this guy who wasn't even a Frankenstein, who had nothing really to do with Frankenstein except the daughter was in there. And that was pretty much the only part of the Frankenstein, besides the monster, who once again came back from the dead.
He came back from his frozen tundra that was underneath the dilapidated Frankenstein castle, which now apparently was in front of a dam.
Yeah, I believe they moved the castle, or they moved the dam, one or the other.
Dam!
And please take all the damn pictures you want. Now, are there any damn questions?
Yeah, we're gonna get some damn bait.
Eddie.
enjoyed this movie. I thought it was great. I really loved the actress playing Elsa Frankenstein. She was the same woman who was in The Invisible Agent, and I thought she was outstanding. The best part of it for me was the festival of the first wine in the village of Visaria, because we got a cool musical number, which was the thing that was sorely lacking in Universal horror movies, is a musical breakdown.
Yeah, I mean...
Great song. I've been singing it to myself all week. Follow la, follow lee. And I've been dancing around, and I thought it was outstanding.
Yeah.
And Frankenstein didn't need to be in this movie because he was played by Bela Lugosi, and he barely did anything, and they could have just left him out. They didn't even need to have him in here. They could have had a story about the granddaughter of Frankenstein and using the technology to try to help the Wolfman kill himself without having to have the Frankenstein monster in it. That's the most frustrating part for me. If Frankenstein monster hadn't been in this movie, perfect movie.
I believe it was nice to have Frankenstein in the film. I enjoyed Frankenstein in the film. Although, Bela Lugosi, at this point, has become just like Lon Chaney. He keeps playing other characters, other than Dracula. He hasn't been Dracula again. He's been Igor, and he's been Frankenstein now.
And if you go back a couple reviews and watch our review for Ghost of Frankenstein, you notice at the very end of it, what they say is Frankenstein, or the monster, he's not the same person, the monster lost his vision, and he couldn't see. So throughout the beginning of this film, Frankenstein's monster is walking like this. Frankenstein's monster is walking like this, and he's like knocking everything over in his path. And if you pretty much watch any sort of parody of Frankenstein now, or Frankenstein's monster, the way he's being portrayed, he's always being portrayed like that, which I think is really interesting. And he's walking like that because he can't see. Even though they never mentioned in this movie, they cut it out, because I actually asked my good friend Svengoolie about this, and he said yes, they did originally have it in the film, then they decided not to put it in there, and just pretend that he could see, and he's just walking around like he couldn't see because he couldn't see.
Yeah, it was very strange.
I find it interesting that that becomes the stereotypical way that people portray Frankenstein's monster, just like the stupid mummy sequels with the leaves, with the guy with the gimpy arm and dragging his foot, becomes how every single mummy from now to the end of time will be portrayed, because he doesn't have enough leaves. Original mummy didn't do that crap.
And the one thing I really liked about this film, and I guess it's okay that they did put the monster in there, because it had a really cool fight sequence at the end between Wolfman and the monster. And I imagine it was like seeing Freddy versus Jason.
I was just going to say the same thing. It was a Freddy versus Jason team up.
Yeah, the two finally get to fight. And it was a good fight, too. It was like a WWE match going on right down in the lab down there. Wolfman jumping off stuff, doing elbows, and, Stone Cold Stunners, and all the other stuff. It was a pretty cool fight.
Yeah, Wolfman always has to climb up on stuff and jump down, because that's like his one move. Going off the top rope.
Well, you also have to remember that the Frankenstein monster was quite tall. And when Lon Chaney, which is weird because Lon Chaney is quite tall. But anyway, it's supposed to be that Frankenstein is a tall person. So, tall monster. So he has to get above him to jump down on top of him and take him out.
So yeah, it was a really cool fight. And overall, I liked this movie a lot. And really good team up there at the end, good fight. And I guess it was worth putting the monster in it just to see them fight, if anything else. So, overall, I am giving this movie a 4 out of 5.
I would also give the movie a 4 out of 5. Because I did thoroughly enjoy the film. I thought it was very good, and I also liked that the movies of the 80s actually took a lot of stuff from these films, and this is one of the more prominent ones, because the very beginning of the movie is them going through the cemetery looking for the Wolfman, and it really was reminiscent of Friday the 13th Part 6, when they were going through the cemetery looking for Jason. It was so much like that, and that's basically where that director took from that and put it in his Friday the 13th, and it was awesome.
I will also say that I just wanted to give another shout out real quick to my boy Dwight Fry. Big ups to my boy Dwight Fry for once again getting in this movie and being one of the angry townspeople, and they gave him more to do in this movie than just being in one scene talking about blowing stuff up. He actually was in quite a bit of the town scenes, which was great, and I love this movie. I think the Frankenstein monster was the only not so great part, but the rest of it was outstanding. I'm gonna give this movie a 5 out of 5.
And there you go. There is the first team up, and there's a few more team ups on the way. Not going to give any spoilers out, but I will spoil this for you tonight. There are going to be live screams coming to your way. It's going to be all night. Well, no, maybe 2 hours tonight. But the live screaming continues for 31 days. I don't know how many days we're in here now. A lot. But there's a lot more to come. So Dave and Becky.
A classic team up, Dave and Becky. Another classic team up.
Yeah, there might even be some elbows thrown. You never know. So make sure you tune in tonight for the live screams for the horror video gaming.
Somebody stop the damn match! As God is my witness, he is broken in half.
I am going to go and see if I can start up Frankenstein's machines once again after they've been burnt and crushed and turned off, and I'm going to go check it out.
Well, one thing, Professor, make sure you always get the high ground, because you don't want the Wolfman jumping on top of you. Where'd he go?
It's okay.
You leave?
Stay spooky.
You still there?
No, I left.
Oh.
Hello?
Oh.
You alright?
Yeah.
Hello?
Oh, well, apparently you left. For the rest of you guys, you know what to do. Stay spooky.